Did you know Mother? I've seen you knew Mother Gerald, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How would you describe her? What is she like? Was she like?
That's very difficult. Um, she filled the room. You know, when she came into the room, she just filled it. You were drawn to listen to her, to look to her, to be inspired by her. And I think that's part of her power, her gift.
In the pictures that I have seen of her, and granted they're posed and they're in black and white and they're back in the day, but she looks, I wouldn't say stern or forbidding, but she looks resolute. I don't know if that was, the real person there, or that was, partly, what she felt she had to do. But she looks a little formidable.
Yes, what she was. She was the one who made sure you behaved, that you were following the rules. But there was a great deal of humanity and caring and compassion. Any sister who had a family need was, a Mother Gerald was very good to that sister. So, I'd say she was very balanced.
She sounds, in hindsight, maybe the right person at that time.
Oh, I think so.
For that job.
Yeah.
Because she had to do other things. I know her brothers were obviously the Archbishop and
Right.
they're in positions of power, but she oversaw other things than just being president of Berry College.
Right. Yeah.
And someone said to me, and I don't know, was she often not on the campus?
Oh, she was seldom on the campus.
How can you be the president of a college, though, and not be on the campus, I wonder?
I don't know.
Where was she? Sister said she was out there in Arizona with her brothers. What are two Irishmen doing out in Arizona, or something like that? Okay, so then moving along. So if someone said to you, or if I said to you, which I'm going to, Berry College, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think?
I think of so many things, but I think of the young women.
The students.
Yes, that I knew there. When I started out there, Sister Thomas Mary and I lived with students across the street in a little house. And a couple of weeks ago, one of those students came to see us. She has a sister here. And so she wanted to see me, and of course she was shocked at what she saw, but because I changed so. But she was recalling the time that Thomas Berry and I were both in the house, but a mouse got loose. And Thomas was going around with a mop trying to swat the mouse. And Pat was, she couldn't forget that incident, that was.
Now who was swatting the mouse? Who's Thomas?
Sister Thomas Mary.
Oh, Sister Thomas Mary. Oh.
The two of us lived there with these kids.
And you trying to get the mouse.
Yeah.
Did you know her right away? Have you kept in touch over the years?
No. She's the Sister Kathleen Donnelly. And Kathleen would tell me frequently, my sister remembers you because you lived in the house with her. And the mouse got loose. So. But it was our relationship with the girls.
What were the girls like at that time?
They were lovely. They really were lovely, and there were Latinos, there were girls coming from Cuba and from South America, from Central America, and they were very close to one another, and some of them were lonely, you know, but they were very lovely. And the girls, I just enjoyed them very much.
Did you have to play sort of house mother?
Yes.
What was that like?
Sometimes difficult. It meant being kind of severe about their cleaning habits. It meant sitting up late nights often at a desk, making sure that everybody got in on time, you know, and really keeping very close care, because the doors were left open at Mara Stella and Rosa Mystica, and Stella Matutina too. People could come and go, so you had to be there to watch who was coming and going, and you didn't let anyone in who didn't belong.
Yeah, and they had a dress code too.
Yeah, they had a dress code, and they were very, they were really very docile, too. Yeah.
Don't you think that for all those restrictions or rules and regulations, that's exactly why their parents wanted them to go to a Catholic women's college?
I think so, yes.
But some sisters have told me they even thought back then it was awfully restrictive. They had to be tough on the girls. They didn't necessarily think they needed that much watching over. I don't know. How do you feel?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know the difference much. I wasn't too much removed from their age, you know. And I did not have the, you know, a sophisticated background to know whether they should be seeing more of life than they were seeing. But it seemed reasonable to me. Smoking was prohibited until later on. I think everyone realized we couldn't control it, couldn't stop them. And then the torch porch was designated for a spot for them to smoke, and that seemed to take care of at least what we could see. I don't know.
When you were there, there were no men. Men had not been, right?
No, except for the day classes.
Oh, they had men at day classes?
Yeah, I had men in my art education.
So it wasn't really then I know that men started coming at one point in the summer, but you can't really say it was an all-women's college, can you, if there were men taking classes?
Well, no boarders, but there were men in classes.
Oh, okay. And tell me, how was it? What kind of art did you teach? What things did you do back then?
Well, I had painting and drawing, and in art education, you taught a lot of techniques, calligraphy, and simple ceramics. You know, we didn't have a kiln, so couldn't do too much. Couldn't do too much sculpture, but we didn't have the space or the equipment.
Where was the studio? Where was the class?
It was the last room of Angelicus, the very last first floor room.
And there is no Angelica there now. So
I know, it's all different, but that's in the very first building. It was the last.
How many buildings were there when you were there?
Angelicus, Rosa Mystica, Mara Stella, Stella Matutina, and of course the chapel.
I have a question. Something else.
And Benincasa.
And Benincasa. Someone said, and I don't know if this was during your time there, and I don't know if it's true, but Sister Linda said she had heard that a hurricane came by and blew out the windows in the chapel, and so that they did something. They either were paper windows and were blown out, or when they were blown out, they had to put paper windows up or something.
I never knew that. I mean, I was there for several hurricanes, but the chapel was never affected.
And Did you enjoy teaching at that time in that place, in that sort of setting at Barry?
Yes, I never enjoyed Florida, I have to say that. I wouldn't blame Barry. But I found Florida stifling.
Too hot, too humid, too buggy?
Well, bugs didn't bother me so much, but the heat did, the humidity.
You come from Chicago, or you were used to growing up in the Midwest, yeah. You mentioned that the student body there was also Hispanics. Were you there when one of the sisters talked about the first black student that went there? Were you there?
No, and I was shortly before, I think it was a couple of years before I left, we began trying to introduce the idea of black students. And there was a group of girls who really resented that and fought against it, and we tried to reason with them, and they were, they had the defense that black people took care of them, black people raised them, and they loved them, their mammies and the people that work for them in their homes. They loved them dearly, but they didn't want them in school with them. They didn't want them in the same living with them. So it was very hard to break that culture. And I hope that eventually we did. I mean, we must have, because they're there. But we may not have the same girls there.
No, that's true. So you're saying it was some of the students, not all of them, but some of the students who objected. It wasn't the sisters, and it wasn't the hierarchy.
And they were groups from, the girls were from like the Alabama's area, that part of the South. And they just had that in their past and couldn't take it.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out how many maybe girls left when they did desegregate the school, but I don't know that. And how was it that you came to become a nun and that you chose the Adrian Dominican congregation?
Well, my sister was in Adrian. She was teaching at Siena. And my father wanted me to go to Adrian for my senior year of high school. So I did. And then Easter of that year, I didn't go back to Chicago. And I decided then that I would like to become an Adrian Dominican. And my sister took me into Mother Gerald. It was Wednesday of Holy Week, and we told Mother that I'd like to be an Adrian Dominican, and she said, "Good, we'll give you the veil on Friday." Well, that was fine, but when the nuns heard it, Friday was Good Friday, but the worst day for anyone to enter, because it was strict fast and a lot of prayers, and so they changed it to Easter Sunday. So that was how I entered.
Wow. And did you, had this been something you thought of for a long time, or was it something that was really just...
Well, I'm sure I thought about it for a long time. But, you can think about something but not express the thought, or not even say to yourself that that's what you're thinking.
Was your sister an Adrian sister at the time?
Oh, yes.
Oh, she was?
She had been for several years.
So that was a powerful influence,
probably. Of course.
And coming to Siena Heights was also an influence. I've wondered with some of them who said, it was just sort of the power, though, of the Adrians that made it.
Yes, you're very conscious of what the sisters are doing. And then I saw the novices. I saw what they were doing, their earnestness, and the way they quietly went about their work, their devotion. It was very impressive.
isn't it possible to be sort of romanticized and
Of
not
course.
have the calling?
Of course, that's what the 6 months, and for me it was a year of postulancy before I got a veil. So, it's a good testing time.
Are you, I don't want to put words, but are you disappointed or not surprised or think it's sad or think it's not sad that there's so few women now that do enter into a sisterhood?
Well, I think it's sad too. I mean, from one aspect, it's sad because, there are things out there that need the work, need the help, and we need the workers, the helpers. So, in that respect, it's sad. But religious life can be evolving to a new kind, to maybe a better kind. Who knows? I mean, I think that God works strangely. We don't always know or agree, but it can be wonderful in the long run.
But the loss of sisters, would they bring something that maybe associates might not bring, or are associates maybe the natural progression of...
Exactly.
Which exactly?
But not, well, the natural progression. But maybe not going back to what the sisters brought. I mean, it's going maybe a progression of having the message get out to the world more fully, more completely, more directly than we were able to do. Who knows? Do you follow me?
I do. So what you're saying is, or what we're probably going to see is that the future of Catholic universities, for example, will be in the hands of lay people. And that may not be a bad thing.
No, because they are working with, living with, influencing other lay people in a way that we're not doing it or unable to do it. Because we are separated from them in a certain way.
But what will they miss, in the same token, by not having the sisters there?
Well, if we did a good job of educating them, they wouldn't miss anything.
Interesting. I find, and I make this comment, but it's not really a question, but I'd like you to respond to it. I am very impressed with the sisters that I've interviewed here because I've found them so forward-thinking. I don't use the word liberal, but so open-minded, very progressive. I don't think that's what certainly a lot of understanding is, and I don't know if that's special to the Adrian, group, or to nuns in general. But I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. That I should have known it all along, and it's my ignorance, or
No.
But and I don't mean me personally, but I just mean
No, I think that we have always been open to new ideas. We can't always accept. And not everyone has been made to accept new ideas, but we've been allowed to have new ideas. And individuals have been allowed to work on projects that, some people say, what good is that? But still support someone doing something progressive. I could never go out to, to Arizona, to the, where the bombs are, where is it that they...
Oh, the nuclear test sites.
Yes,
yes.
Get arrested. I could never do that. I mean, I'm not the type of person who will fight for something like that. But I'll support a nun who wants to go out and be arrested and help to pay her bail if I can. You know, and that's the kind of thing I mean. You may not want to do something yourself, or you may not feel excited about something that a person or the congregation is doing, but you're going to do everything in your power to support it.
Because it's something you sort of instinctively understand is right, or because the congregation itself is so strong, or
well,
both?
You can see the value of it, and you know that you know where you stand.
You're not going to tie yourself to the fence and get arrested, but you respect.
Yes.
Interesting. Do you think the Adrian Dominican congregation is then sort of singular, you know, in its approach to things, or all of the various nuns have their strengths and perhaps weaknesses, but...
Yeah, I think I would say that. Yes. I think that we are considered by many to be progressive. That's the safe adjective, because we have been, you know, there are people who think that we are, you know, a little bit too forward, but there are many communities that are just as progressive, but they just don't make the news, or there are not as many as we are, so you don't hear so much about it.
What is your impression of Sister Linda? I mean, have you had dealings with her? Do you know her well? You said no, right?
You really no. I just know. I just hear she's doing a great job. You know, that's what you hear ongoing, and is doing a great job.
What about Sister Jean O'Loughlin? Did you know her?
Well, I knew her long ago when she was skinny as could be. We used to tease her, but since she's elevated, I really haven't seen her.
That's funny you say that, because I know her, and I've never known her skinny.
No.
So what did you do after you left Barre? You had to come back then for a while, and I guess you said you didn't really like the weather. You probably weren't thrilled about being reassigned.
No.
Can you ever say no?
No, not then. Not at that time. But see, now we have a chance. And
the other thing that what I understand that, and I think Mother Barre, if I understand correctly, was very big about, and I don't know if in other orders they do this as well, but very big about her women getting an education.
That's right.
And PhDs were not on a rare occasion. No. It was to be encouraged. Was that singular for the time?
Yes, I think so.
Some of the sisters have suggested to me that one of the attractions was that they could do more as a nun with this education than they could considering the times and what the traditional women roles are. Do you?
Well, I think that's part of the reason, often, for being a nun, rather than staying as a single woman and doing the same thing. A group can achieve more than a single person. I mean, that's the whole idea of community, a community working together instead of just the individual.
So it was the support that you get, you know, from other women,
right,
to encourage you. Because in the 40s and the 50s, the theory was women were to get married and have children and cook dinner for their husband, and if they worked, it was a secretary, but they were not going to be CEOs, and that sort of thing. And the sisters in this order have done I mean, we were talking about the one that was the construction crew chief, so there are probably remarkable stories of women doing remarkable things.
Yes.
That would not have been afforded to do you think, to anyone else at that time?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
The teaching is clearly a big point of the mission, the education, getting one and then passing it along. And I want to go over again, at the time, if they asked you to do something, you had to do it. So if it wasn't your field of specialty, you then had to learn something new to be able to teach it, correct?
That's right.
They didn't try to match people with their specialties, though, I guess.
Oh, yeah, in general, I mean, that was the idea. But in case of emergency, sometimes the unusual was done.
Are you glad you were an art teacher?
Yes, yes. It was great.
Is there something else that you think of in this conversation we're having that perhaps I didn't ask a question about, something that has occurred to you that I should have asked, or? Because this is sort of a couple of things. It's sort of a history of Barre, but it's also a history of a living history of the sisters, and I look towards the future, to where the future of things are going. So,
I think we've covered everything. The memories that I have of Barre, I told you, I remember how good the women were and how much I enjoyed them. But I remembered some of the things they did that were so beautiful, like Denise's Christmas oratorio that they put on. It was so beautiful and such a wonderful production. And then they did ballet in the pool.
the synchronized swimming.
Synchronized swimming, and that was beautiful too, until Bishop Hurley said he didn't approve of it. And they stopped. I was so upset.
What was wrong with that?
Well, he didn't think young women should be displaying themselves in that way. So that ended that. But those are the things that I remember. I remember the hurricanes and how the kids would be all scared to death in their rooms, all battened down.
Actually, a lot of them still are that come from areas other than South Florida. I've had that experience.
Yeah.
The oratorio you mentioned, was that the one, someone has told me about a production that they did where they had a singer standing on the top of the chapel? Or something?
She wasn't standing on the top of the chapel, but on the top step of the chapel. I mean, they used the entrance to the chapel as a stage. And it was gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. And lit at night, you know, was so effective because they could control the lighting for the figures. And she had two, Denise, this was Denise, had two singers with powerful voices, beautiful voices. And the chorus was beautiful too. And that production was classic.